Did you hit the snooze button again this morning? That heavy, suffocating feeling in your chest isn't just exhaustion. It's the weight of another broken promise. But here is the truth most gurus won't tell you. You aren't failing because you lack discipline. You're failing because you are trying to run a marathon while carrying stones that don't belong to you. Imagine if one silent hour, before the world demands your soul, could hand you an extra 45 days of life every year. This is the 13th month maneuver. It's how a defeated soldier named Thomas went from a foggy, penniless guard to a master of his own empire. He discovered that his real enemy wasn't the alarm clock. It was something much heavier hidden in his routine. But what exactly was Thomas carrying that kept him paralyzed in bed? And how can a simple 5 a.m. shift reveal the invisible burden that is draining your energy right now? I will show you the tactical blueprint Thomas used to drop that weight. But first, you need to understand why your morning is actually a battlefield you've already lost. The blue light of the phone cuts through the pitch-black room like a cold blade. Thomas reaches out, his hand scarred and heavy from years of carrying the world's weight. He taps the snooze button, a reflex perfected over countless failures. It's the first white flag of the day, a silent surrender before the sun even shows its face. Waking up at 9 isn't just being late. It's a soul-crushing defeat that tastes like stale coffee. You know that heavy feeling in your chest, like you're already 3 laps behind in a race? While you hide under the covers, the world is claiming the opportunities meant for you. But there is a darker reason why Thomas, and perhaps you, can't seem to find the strength to stand up. It's not just a lack of sleep. It's because your energy is being siphoned off by a burden you don't even realize you're carrying. A collection of stones that make the simple act of sitting up feel like lifting a mountain. But what happens to a soldier when he loses the rhythm of the march? And more importantly, what is the hidden leak in your foundation that makes you crave the anesthesia of sleep more than the glory of the win? We are about to look at the map of a war you didn't even know you were fighting. Wars aren't won in the heat of battle. They're won on maps drawn before the first shot is fired. As Thomas stares at the ceiling, he begins to sense the weight of the sacred silence. This isn't just an hour on the clock. It's the only time when you are truly the commanding officer of your own restless soul. While the rest of the world is still dreaming, the 5 a.m. hour offers a quiet, almost eerie power, a secret weapon where your potential can finally breathe. Think of it as your strategic dawn, a head start that feels like a massive unfair advantage over everyone else. You could spend this stillness mastering high-income skills or deep logistics while your competition is still fighting their own pillows. But here is the mystery. Why do some people use this hour to build empires, while others find it impossible to even crawl out from under the sheets? Thomas had the heart of a lion, but he was living like a caged prisoner. He was about to discover that the bars of his cage weren't made of steel, but of unspoken debts to people who didn't even care about his success. Before you can master the dawn, you must understand the internal operating system that is currently sabotaging your mission, and the one specific reason why your body feels heavy the moment the sun begins to rise. Thomas stands under a flickering fluorescent light, checking the locks of a warehouse at midnight. His once crisp uniform faded, his body lacking the sharp edge of his service years. He earns pennies, living in a cramped room that smells of dust. You see, Thomas has the heart of a warrior, but he's currently shackled by the mediocre habits of a prisoner. His mind is a foggy landscape of forgotten ambitions and unpaid bills that pile up by the day. It's an exhausting way to live, fighting a war against poverty without a tactical plan in his hand. Maybe you've felt that too, the heavy weight of knowing you're capable of so much more, yet you're working a job that drains your battery while your true potential waits patiently in the shadows. A bank account with a zero balance is usually just a symptom of a spirit with a zero routine. Thomas looks in the mirror and sees a ghost, a man waiting for a sign to sharpen the blade and step back into the light. But what Thomas didn't realize was that the fog in his mind wasn't caused by a lack of sleep. It was the debris of all the emotional stones he was carrying for people who never asked him to bear them. Soon, I'm going to reveal the mirror moment that changed everything for him, and why your current routine is actually a breach of contract with your future self. But first, you need to see the exact moment the floor fell out from under him, forcing a choice he never saw coming. The phone vibrated at 5:30 a.m., but Thomas was lost in a snooze-induced fog. It was the call he'd been praying for, a high-stakes contract that could have ended his poverty in a single day. By the time he cleared the crust from his eyes at 9:15, the position was gone. Opportunity doesn't negotiate with people who are still arguing with their pillows. But the paycheck wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the look in his sister's eyes, the quiet disappointment of someone who needed a provider and got a ghost instead. You see, your lack of discipline isn't just a personal choice. It's a breach of contract with everyone who is counting on your strength. Thomas stared into the cracked bathroom mirror and finally saw the truth. A soldier without a routine is just a civilian in boots, waiting for the world to pass him by. But why was the gap between who he was and who he could be so wide? Thomas felt like he was standing on the edge of a canyon, looking at his future self on the other side. What he didn't know, and what I will reveal shortly, is that you cannot cross that canyon as long as you are carrying the heavy stones of other people's expectations. He realized he needed a complete overhaul of his internal operating system. But where do you find the strength to start when you've already failed everyone? The answer was waiting for him in a fog-drenched park, held by a man they called the General. The morning air is crisp, biting at Thomas's lungs as he enters the fog-drenched park. He spots a figure sitting on a stone bench, as unmoving as granite, Colonel Vance. While the city sleeps in chaos, the General of Stillness sits in the absolute center of the storm. "Thomas," Vance says without moving a muscle, "you lost your way because you forgot how to be still." His voice carries more weight than any drill sergeant's scream. He explains that the world is loud because it is weak, a frantic scramble for crumbs. But the dawn is quiet because it is powerful. It is the birthplace of all true authority. Vance offers Thomas a stark choice: become the architect of this hour or officially sign your papers of total surrender. Most people think the secret to success is more hustle and more coffee. But the elite know that high-value clarity is only found when you shut out the world's static. But here is the secret the General only whispered to the most elite commanders. You cannot achieve stillness if your mind is cluttered with the emotional wreckage of everyone else's lives. Thomas realized he wasn't just fighting his alarm. He was fighting a weight he hadn't yet named. What is this invisible burden that makes stillness feel like a threat instead of a refuge? And what is the mathematical maneuver that can literally grant you an extra month of life every year? The calculation Vance showed next would change the math of Thomas's destiny forever. Vance pulls out a small notebook, its paper yellowed from years of strategic planning. "Most folks are math-blind, Thomas," he mutters, the scratch of his pen sharp in the morning silence. He writes down a single number, a secret code for an elite life. 3 hours, he says. From 5 to 8 a.m. is the gold mine you've been walking over every day. 3 hours a day adds up to 21 hours a week, nearly an entire extra day of focused life. Over a year, that is 1,095 hours of pure consciousness, while the rest of the world snoozes. Think about it. I am handing you a 13th and even a 14th month of life to master any skill, from financial literacy to deep coding. While others are stuck in the 12-month rat race, you are operating on an elite calendar. This is the vanguard maneuver, the tactical edge that turns a struggling guard into a titan. But as Thomas stared at the numbers, a chill ran down his spine. He realized he had been murdering his own mornings. But here is the logical trap. Why do most people fail to claim this extra month, even when the math is this clear? It's because their 13th month is already pre-sold to the ghosts of their past. You cannot invest time you haven't reclaimed from the emotional debts of others. Thomas was ready to do the work, but Vance warned him that without a specific fortress protocol, he would just be waking up early to carry the same heavy stones into a different hour. What is this protocol, and why is step 0 something that most productivity gurus completely ignore? We are about to enter the fortress. Vance hands Thomas a laminated card, the fortress protocol. The first hour, from 05 Sir to 06 Narkars, is the art of stillness. You must scout your own mind like a recon team, clearing the mental debris of yesterday's failures before the world starts screaming for you. Next, from 06 Rar to 08 Rar, the schedule shifts into strategic skill building under the blackout rule. Your phone stays dead, no emails, no scrolling, and 0 digital distractions to rot your focus. This is where you forge professional armor that cannot be pierced, mastering logistics or high-stakes management while your rivals are still dreaming. Then comes the physical tax, a 15-minute burst to prove the mind commands the flesh, followed by the prime objective, finishing your hardest work before the sun is even up. This protocol turns you into the pilot of your life. But as Thomas looked at the list, he noticed a hidden danger. Vance warned him that if he tried to build this fortress on top of a foundation of unresolved burdens, the walls would crumble by the third day. Why do most people hit a biological wall even when they have the perfect schedule? And what is the vanguard step that ensures you don't just wake up early, but wake up free? Thomas was about to find out that the hardest battle wasn't against the clock, but against a biological mutiny he never saw coming. The first week wasn't a graceful ascent. It was a gritty, grinding war of attrition. Thomas's old injuries flared up in the damp chill, reminding him of every defeat he'd ever tasted. His brain begged for the anesthesia of the covers, weaving sweet lies about just 5 more minutes. Every step across that freezing wooden floor felt like taking the first bullet of a long engagement. We've all been there, that heavy, dark irritability that makes every minor task feel like a mountain. It is the biological mutiny of an old self that is terrified of the person you are currently becoming. Thomas had to use mental scouting, noting his negative thoughts without letting them take the wheel. It's a practical exercise in emotional intelligence that most people never learn in a lifetime. On the morning of day 6, something shifted. The absolute silence stopped feeling like a vacuum and started feeling like a reservoir of untapped strength. But why do some people push through this agony, while others retreat back into the fog? The answer lies in what Thomas did during those scouting sessions. He realized he wasn't just tired, he was emotionally over-encumbered. He found that the biological mutiny is 10 times harder when you are still carrying the stones of other people's expectations. How did Thomas finally drop the heavy stones that were making his legs feel like lead? And what happens when the defeated soldier finally dies to make room for the leader? The harvest was about to begin, and the results were more than just financial. 6 months of the vanguard maneuver turned Thomas into a completely different kind of animal. While the rest of the world was sleeping, he'd clocked in over 500 hours of deep study. He didn't just look for a job. He walked into an operations firm and showed them their own leaks. The extra 45 days had given him the clarity to see moves that others were too tired to notice. Now he doesn't check his bank account with a shaking hand or a sense of impending doom. His mastery of supply chain logistics, built in the 5 a.m. silence, made him an indispensable asset. He's moved from a broken guard to a strategic director, commanding a salary that changed his life. But the greatest win wasn't the paycheck. It was the quiet pride in his sister's eyes. He's no longer the guy who misses the call. He's the rock the entire family leans on now. However, there is a question you must ask yourself. How did Thomas keep this success from becoming just another heavy burden? Most leaders reach the top only to find they are now carrying the stones of an entire company and an entire family, leading to a new kind of exhaustion. Thomas stayed light because he mastered the art of letting go alongside his discipline. In a moment, I will show you the covenant of the dawn, the final step to ensure your success doesn't become your new prison. But first, you need to see how Thomas realized that his individual victory was only the beginning of a much larger mission. Every morning, the world presents you with a simple choice between a flag and a cry. The snooze button is a white flag of surrender, a way of telling the universe you aren't ready for the life you claim to want. Thomas looked at that button one last time and realized it was the anchor dragging him to the bottom of the ocean. Instead, the 5 a.m. alarm became his battle cry, a signal that he was ready for the fight. We are rebuilding a vanguard of people who refuse to live their lives in a blurry fog. It is a covenant of the dawn, a secret circle of achievers who own the first light of day. You don't need a military uniform to join. You only need the courage to stop running from your own potential. It's about claiming your extra 1,000 hours and building a life that finally commands the respect you deserve. But there is a final, invisible wall you will hit. Even with the loudest battle cry, you cannot march forward if your backpack is filled with the emotional stones of your past, your family's expectations, and the burdens of people who don't even want to see you succeed. Why do most day 1 commitments fail by day 4? It's because they tried to change their schedule without changing what they were carrying. If you are ready to reclaim your strategic advantage, comment day 1 below to signal your oath. But before the sun rises tomorrow, you need the one thing Thomas had that made his victory permanent, a way to drop the weight before the march begins. Are you ready to see the final piece of the tactical blueprint that ensures you never have to surrender again? Thomas survived the 90-day fortress protocol, and today he stands at the gates, no longer a ghost of a man, but the commander of his own destiny. He finally understood the math. Those 45 extra days of life are only useful if you aren't spending them carrying the heavy burdens of the past. But ask yourself, how many more mornings will you sacrifice to the anesthesia of the snooze button because the weight of your life feels too heavy to lift? The 13th month maneuver is only possible when you learn to drop the stones that were never yours to carry. Many of the stories you hear here aren't just stories. They reflect the invisible weight you may be carrying every day. If you're tired of holding pain, responsibility, and guilt that were never yours, I created a tactical blueprint called The Weight of Stones That Are Not Yours. It's specifically designed for those who, like Thomas, have a warrior's heart but feel shackled by the mediocre habits of a prisoner. When you claim your copy today, I'm also including 2 vital mission assets. Bonus 1, learning to let go, and Bonus 2, when saying no is an act of self-love. Together, these are the tools you need to finally set boundaries, clear your strategic dawn, and live with a lightness you haven't felt in years. Don't let another year slip away while you're busy negotiating with a pillow and a dream. The mission doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts when you decide to drop the weight. Your new life is waiting for you in the silence of the dawn. The link to claim your throne and your ebook is in the description and in the pinned comment. The defeated soldier in you dies today. The wise leader takes command at dawn. See you at 5 a.m.